Hey, Purpose Claremont. I say it all the time and I say it still. I miss you guys. I'm thankful for what it is we're still able to do, but I definitely miss you all. But I'm hoping that you'll take the time to watch this. And it's going to take a little bit of time just to kind of explain as we kind of look forward. Like, what's next? We don't want to approach things reactively. We want to pray through things and have a plan and yet always respond to when it is that God's calling us to do something. And so, um, it's been brought up often. I know other churches have brought it up. Other churches are wondering, when do we come back together to worship together in the same place, to be back on the campus? And so I wanted to address that. I wanted to do it through video so that our Sunday morning times and our Thursday evening times, we would be focused in on the Word. The series that we're going, Thursdays, Romans 1 through 3, Sundays, Isaiah 43 and 44. I would just want to stay focused in on that. So if you'll just give me a little bit of time just to watch this, just so you know where I believe that the Lord is leading us to be. Um, so again, you may be asking, when do we get to be back together in the gym? And please know, I miss you all. I miss seeing everyone in the gym. The tech team's there. They have to listen to me. There's a few of them that, and the faithful ones, that they show up every time to help make sure we have a worship gathering that can go online. I just miss you. I miss seeing everyone in the room. I miss handshakes and hugs before and after the service. I miss the conversations. I miss that. And so please know my heart as I move forward. I miss being together as much as everyone else does. Just know my heart aches. I just love seeing people there together. But so you may be asking the question, so when do we get back together? And here's the answer. I don't know. I don't know. I know we won't be one of the first churches to come back together into a worship gathering in person in the same place, but we're not striving to be the last either. And you actually have churches on both extremes that some are pushing to be the first. In fact, some have already started meeting together, and others are going to be meeting in the next couple of weeks in May 31st. And we'll look at that for just a second. And then others are saying, we want to be one of the last ones to do it. And they have reasons for it. And so I just, please know, again, my heart is, I wish we could come back yesterday. But we've never been through anything like this. It's a lot going on in the world, not just in our city, not just with regards to our church, not just our nation, but around the world. And so we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And so I've been in prayer last 2-3 weeks, just, God, when do you want this? And here's the reason. There are a number of churches, and I've read many articles and seen a couple news broadcasts about churches in California that are opening up. I've seen numbers from 1,000 to 3,000 that are opening on May 31st. No matter what Governor Newsom says. And please know, as I say these things and share some of the things that I read in it, there's no judgment. I don't know these pastors. I've never met them personally, but I know of some of them and of being in the area long enough. And I trust that they love Jesus, and I trust that they love his word, and I trust that they're seeking him in prayer. And I trust that they love their community, that they understand their role. The role of the shepherd is to care for God's people. That's our number one job, is to care for you. And so I trust that that's what's happening. And so to have, again, I see 1,000, then I see 3,000. So somewhere between there, saying May 31st, the reason they're getting together on May 31st is because it's the day of Pentecost. And so they see it as a special day, and that's fine. And again, there's no judgment. There was just a couple things that stood out in the article, and the things that some of them said that I thought, I just don't agree with that. Again, no judgment. We can agree to disagree on things. But for us, we're not coming back the 31st. That's not where I sense God leading us, just because of what he's been teaching us since we launched about the church. So a few of the statements that stood out to me in the articles I read, one was, it's time to open church again. It's time to open church again. And I sat there and I thought, the church never closed. The church never closed down. And now I understand what they're saying. It's time to get us all back in the place. But to refer to the place as church completely goes against what that word church actually means. The word church has nothing to, one, in the Greek, it's not a word that talks of, it's not like a religious term. It's actually a word that was commonly used to describe a gathering of people brought together to fulfill a purpose. And so you can't open up a community of people. I know what they're saying. We want to open up the church. We need to open it up again. But the thing is, it never closed. And I just wanted to list a few things that I've seen. Actually, a good chunk of things that I've seen or I've heard about from other people who I'm having conversations with, and they're telling me about all these things that they're seeing God do. And I just wanted to let you know, the church never closed. We did not close. In fact, there was a meme that I saw, the church hasn't closed, it's been deployed. And I love that because, you know, my heart, if you've been part of Purpose Claremont for any time, my heart and the blueprint that I use for ministry is Acts 2:42-47. And gosh, the early church for the first 300 years did not have a building to meet in. They met in homes. And I love that. And that, again, don't get me wrong, I think there's something beautiful that comes together when we all get to be together as a community. Even in Acts 2, it mentions that they met daily in the temple courts. The end of Luke talks about the fact that they went to the temple on a regular basis to bless the Lord. They went there for worship. And so I believe that the majority of everything that happened was in homes. It was with like smaller communities coming together. I want to make sure we understand, man, God is working in beautiful ways. So I remember seeing this post. Michelle posted this after a Sunday morning together, some message, I don't know what I said, but it struck her. And she's like, I just want to make sure people know the gospel. She felt just the call to be bold. And then she said, I want to pray for all of my friends, starting with A, those whose last names start with A, all the way through the alphabet, and to do each letter per day. And she would post it, say, I'm praying for all my friends whose last name starts with A or B or C through the alphabet. I love that because prayer happens anywhere, anytime. Drew Moore invited a client of his who's out of Atlanta, but on Easter was in New Mexico, and said, hey, why don't you join in, like tune into our worship gathering? And he did. The Reds came up with this idea of lawn signs, which I love them. And they say something about, hey, the hope that you're looking for is in Jesus. I thought, man, that is bold. Like, we're being bold. And then it gives the website and the times of our worship gatherings that people can tune in. Then I get when those go out and they deliver them. They deliver them all on their own. They put them in the lawns or in the planters or wherever the people wanted them. And then they just kept going. This was all on their own, provided for them. They designed them and then they delivered them. I thought, man, this is incredible. Then Krista messages me and says, hey, a neighbor just came up and asked, hey, I don't have Facebook, so is there another way that I can tune into your worship service? And I thought, look at that. So neighbors are now approaching because of a lawn sign, and she was able to tell her you don't need a Facebook account to look at the page. And guys, that's incredible. So I see intentional relationships with neighbors where you guys are getting into real conversations, deep things that maybe were never happening before because we were so busy going everywhere. That I think God is saying, I'm going to put you at home. I'm going to put you at your home, in your neighborhood, that you can impact your neighbor. It's so intentional, deep conversations with neighbors that probably wouldn't have been happening either way. Oh, it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for this. Purpose students, they're still meeting. Now they meet twice a week. Sunday nights, everyone together. Tuesday nights, broken up by gender. Purpose Kids Resources has been taken to the next level. What Alyssa and Ashley have put together on our kids page on our website is absolutely incredible. If you haven't looked at it, purposeclaremont.com/kids, check it out and then share those with your friends who have little ones that they're looking for things to do for their little ones. Guys, we see that. Parents are engaging their roles as the primary disciplers of their kids. I'm hearing about parents who they're going through the Bible reading program with their kids, and the kids are following their schedule, and then they're talking about it at lunch. So that's what's happening. More intentional in our daily times together. And here's what I mean. Think about it. Mondays, we meet 5 o'clock for prayer, Facebook Live. Tuesdays, 12 noon, we're going through the book of Acts. I'm leading that Bible study. Wednesdays, Haley's leading worship at 1 p.m. Thursday, 6:30 is our worship gathering where we have worship. We're spending time in prayer. We're looking in the book of Romans, chapters 1 through 3. Friday, we leave open for the times we're going to do video hangouts. Saturday morning at 10, Haley's again leading worship, live worship with Haley. And then Sunday mornings, 10. Guys, we're coming together more than before. And so I look at that and go, that looks a lot like the book of Acts. After that, I'm reading my notes. I hear of more people engaging in times alone with Jesus in the Word and in prayer than ever before. That you're taking seriously getting in the Word and following the Bible reading plan and then really engaging in prayer. It's like almost because some things have slowed down, you have the time to do that. I got a message from a mom, from Adrian, who said that her Her two youngest kids, Landon and Bentley, are interested in getting baptized. I had the opportunity to lead someone to Jesus about a week and a half ago over the phone. He's currently in Illinois. I've heard of you guys dropping off groceries to those who are in need. I've heard of you creating meals and taking them to those families who are going through something even beyond COVID-19. You guys are caring for each other and providing meals for one another. Guys, you guys have been absolutely beyond generous in your financial support for this community and of the ministry that's going on, and how God's using all of us to reach people for Jesus. I've personally seen, like Kelly and I, we've personally seen neighbors who have tuned into our worship gatherings and say they're making Purpose Claremont their home church, and they're excited when we all get to be back together. We've seen new people in our home church. They've been invited and they've joined us online. We're using online virtual meetings. They've joined us and they become part of our home church. Guys, we see more people than ever tuning into worship gatherings. In fact, the numbers of those who would be there in person is compared to online. We have more people tuning in than most of the time we have online by ourselves. And so it's just like, wow. And from all over the place. We have people from Northern California tuning in on a regular basis. People from Utah. People are sharing our worship gathering times with their family in Manila, in Mexico. We have a family in Hawaii that tunes in on a regular basis. And I'm not saying that these things can't happen if we were together. I just want to make sure we see God is working. Like, great things are happening. Guys, we're engaging our neighborhoods on purpose instead of just going to church. So we're actually engaging where we live, the people right around us. Think about it. How many more conversations have you had with people who are walking by? Because everyone's out walking, or they're riding their bikes. They're doing something to get out of the house because they just can't be there, which we are too. But now we're engaging conversations when they're just passing by and we're saying hi. How cool is it to watch Joy Brahm yesterday or whenever you watch this? So this past Sunday, she does the Purpose Kids teaching time. She came up with the message. She came up with the whole layout of what was going to happen. And then she came up with the craft where she taught everyone to draw. She did the whole thing. And I sat and I thought, this is a win. Here's a little kindergartner who says, I want to teach Purpose Kids that Jesus loves you just the way that you are. And I just thought, man, this is beautiful. There's more creativity and thinking outside of the box than I think that we're used to. It's like, we got to figure out a way to keep moving forward in the mission to see what everyone everywhere following Jesus. Guys, we're more intentional in their interactions with regards to comments during worship gatherings. Guys, you're commenting and you're responding to people that you usually probably wouldn't be talking to, not because you don't like them, you just don't sit by them. And it's not like someone's sitting over here on the end and they're screaming to the other person over there saying, I'll pray for you while I'm preaching. And yet that's happening. I feel like community is happening, that when we get back together, you find the person that you've been responding to and replying to. And guys, I just look and go, there's real community happening. I told you my favorite thing to do after I preach, drive home, open up my laptop and look at the comments, respond to any that I can. Guys, it's a blessing to me. And then this family members coming together for worship gatherings on Sunday mornings. When I hear that parents and kids are coming together and they're engaged in the worship gathering together, I love it. When we take communion, they're taking communion in this intimate setting as family. Guys, it's beautiful. It looks like Acts. This is why I can say the church did not close. In fact, I feel like the church has been released. It's like been opened, that we can actually impact the neighborhood without a reliance upon a service or a building. And so that was one of the phrases that I saw. The other one I saw, the day of Pentecost is the perfect day for the church to be reborn. I only think that's true if the church died. But the church didn't die. We don't need to be reborn. But I really think we're being refined. I really believe, and this has been my prayer ever since this whole thing started back in the middle of March. God, I pray that this was my prayer. I pray that you would bring us to a point of refinement as church in the States. I don't know the context outside of the U.S., but the States, bring us to a point of refining your church to make it look as much like the church in Acts as possible, to bring us back to simplicity, be people of prayer, be people who are in your word, be people who worship, be people of fellowship, be people who serve, be people who are on mission, every disciple actively making disciples rather than relying upon a place or a specific message from me or whoever teaches, but all of us engaging, looking like followers of Jesus who are going after Jesus. I don't believe the church has died where it needs to be reborn, even if it is on the day of Pentecost. And then the last one, God's people need to come together once again in God's house and pray and worship together. And this is where I'd like to bring in John chapter 4. John chapter 4 is where the Samaritan woman at the well, Jesus is sitting there. She shows up about noon, or midday, which really kind of showed her reputation. Most of the women, when they went to get water, would come really early in the morning so that it wasn't during the heat of the day. She came about noonish or so, midday, at the hottest part of the day, which means she's kind of an outcast in her town. And so Jesus is there, strikes up this conversation, and then starts talking about living water. She's intrigued by it because this living water that he can offer would mean that she doesn't have to come back to the well. And she's thinking literally, and he's talking figuratively. Anyway, the conversation keeps going, picking up in verse 16. Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped." Now here it is. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship. Now, friends, I know if you've been walking with Jesus for a while, there is a place that just means the world to you. When I was 17, Hume Lake, I went up there for summer camp as a high school senior. I went there, and that's where God just completely revolutionized my life. I'd been brought up in the church. I've been brought up as a Christian, went to Christian school my whole life, but there is where I totally surrendered everything. I just said, "God, whatever you want to do, I'm yours. I give you everything that I am." So every time I go up to Hume Lake, usually it's once a year to go speak there for a week of camp, I'm blessed every time because it's this nostalgic experience of this is where God met me in a real way. There's another camp called Mount Gilead in Sebastopol, California. And I was a camp speaker, and God met me there, introduced me to grace when I was kind of leaning in toward kind of a legalistic view of things. He kind of broke me. And by kind of broke me, I mean he completely broke me and introduced me what grace looks like. And so that's a special place for me. But those aren't the only 2 places where God resides and where God lives. For some of you, you had this massive life-changing experience in the gym on our campus at Western Christian, and God bless it. And I'm so thankful. But God does not only reside there, and so it's not God's house. And so let me go through let me pick up as I keep going down in verse 21 of John 4. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming." Now, this is where I like it. He says, "Believe me," because what she had just said is, okay, you guys have said this, but I don't think this. Verse 19, the woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you're a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." And Jesus' response to that statement is, "Believe me." I know other people are saying this, but believe me. Now I have superiority over that. "The hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews." Then he says, "But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." Why do I bring this passage up? Because when I hear someone say, God's people need to come together once again in God's house and pray and worship together. When you say God's house and you're referring to the church property, guys, that's an Old Testament. That's an Old Covenant understanding of what God's house is. So in the Old Testament, the temple is regarded as God's house. This is his place. But AD 70, in the year AD 70, I probably reword that, in the year 70 AD, not 80, 70 AD, the temple was destroyed. Why? Because it's no longer necessary, because the Bible tells us that our bodies, as believers, our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And so when we show up to a campus, the worship center, that's where we worship. It's not God's house. God's house is us. He's in us. He did everything in order to be in us. And I understand what people are saying. We want to go to God's house. They have a reverence for the building, but the only reason that the building is sacred is because God's people are there. So that means anywhere where God's people are is sacred. My time alone in this office every morning is sacred because God resides in me. My time not in this office where I am is sacred. Even Jesus says, where 2 or more have gathered in my name, 2 or 3 have gathered in my name, there I am in their midst. And so it's not about the location, it's about the quality of the worshipers. He says they will worship in spirit and truth. That's God's heart. It's not about where we worship. It's about the fact that we are true worshipers. And so as we continue to move forward, knowing we're not going to come back May 31st. I wish we could. I wish we could, man. I want to go for that. And you say, well, why are they? Well, they're going against an ordinance that's been set up. The governor said, this is what I want to happen, and I really don't want big groups gathering. And you may say, well, I don't agree with the governor. That's okay. And I understand that. I totally understand that. And the thing is, I don't want this to turn political. If you've been around enough, I don't like politics. I don't like jumping into that. I think we as Christians are first and foremost citizens of the kingdom of God first before anything else. So I feel like everything turns into a fight. But friends, we still have to be sensitive to our neighbors. That's one of the main things we need to look at. We need to be sensitive to our neighbors. So neighbors that live around us in the cities that we are, but especially those who live around Western, that many of them are taking seriously the order that's been given. Hey, we're supposed to stay home. All of a sudden, we as followers of Jesus just show up on a Sunday morning. It looks arrogant. Even if we invite them, it's kind of like, well, why would you as Christians? And guys, when we look at Romans 13, verse 1, let every person be subject to the governing authorities. You say, but I don't agree with it. Yeah, but watch, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. What if we're persecuted? Absolutely, we can stand up for Jesus. It's always him first. But being told to stay home and to worship, like we can still worship together online. We can still do our Bible studies. It's not like they're saying, it's not like it's been told to us. And who knows, down the road it may, I have no clue. But right now, it's not like if you worship Jesus or talk about Jesus, then we're going to arrest you and we're going to kill you. That's persecution. Guys, we're just being told to stay home and worship. And so we want to be sensitive to those who are in the neighborhood and say, okay, we want to portray to you that we're with you, like we're all in this together. But to show up and just have the parking lot packed, are we really being sensitive to those who are scared of what's going on? I'm not scared, totally fine. But some are really scared, and they have legitimate reasons to be scared. That they have people in their homes whose immune systems are shot. And so we want to make sure that we're sensitive to our neighbors and what it is that we're conveying. I know, I get it, that people will be offended by anything. In fact, the Bible even says that Christ is offensive. The gospel is offensive to those who don't believe. To think there's only one way to God, that's offensive. But that does not mean that we as Christians can just automatically be offensive whenever we want. We have to be sensitive. When the scriptures say, be all things to all people, that means, hey, if us staying home, worshiping as we've been doing, which has been healthy, God's been blessing it, if that is going to make someone open to the gospel because of our witness in that way, then we give up our rights. We give up our rights to do whatever is necessary for people to hear the gospel because we don't want to be a stumbling block. So we want to be sensitive to our neighbors. We want to be a blessing to Western. We have to remember that, yeah, there's a few hundred of us that meet on a Sunday morning that we say this is our home. But Western has hundreds of people plus parents, hundreds of students plus parents who are on that campus, and it's their property. So we want to be sensitive to whatever they have to do with regards to being a school. So we can't just say this is what we're doing. We have to be sensitive to their needs as well. The other one, we want to be a blessing to our cities. So wherever we live, we want to be a blessing to our neighbors, the fellow citizens, our governing officials, local, state, national. We want to be good citizens because we're called to be that. I know that some will disagree on that, and that's totally okay. And we can agree to disagree. You say, well, you support, I don't support anyone. I'm just saying I want to follow what Scripture teaches. I want to take into account that there are times where God says, you have to decide whether I'm going to obey you or obey God. There's that verse. I think it's in the book of Acts. And then I have to look at the passage that says, be subject to governing authorities. We've got to blend those together. It's not like I can ditch this one when really I don't see anything that's happening that's biblically mandating Christians to push up against that. So that's why we're not starting May 31st. Now, again, others are doing it. I'm not judging. I may disagree, but I don't judge them. Why not next week? Why not the 31st or next week or earlier? I think we have to keep in mind this. It's not going to look like it looked on March 8th when we all last met together on a Sunday morning. It's not like we come in and all of a sudden we're all sitting close and raising hands and high-fiving and hugging each other. I mean, picture it. We're coming in, masks on, maybe having to take temperatures to make sure that nobody has a fever. And then when we come in, we have to be completely separated to have that social distance thing going on with masks. We're not going to be singing. because we can't be transmitting it if anybody has it. So we're not singing. We go there for a message. And then when we're done, we're not going to be hugging or handshaking. We just leave. And so my fear is that looks, not fear. The part that causes me caution is I feel like that could be a little bit defeating. We think we're going to come in, it's going to be the same. And it's not. It's going to be completely different. And so why rush something when what I see going on so far is healthy community, even though all of us prefer all together, just like it was before all this started. If there's anybody that says, I don't want to be all together, they just want to be all by themselves. The high majority of us want to be together like we were March 8th. I'm not arguing that point at all. But I'm trying to figure out as I pray through it, again, 2 or 3 weeks, just praying through, God, when do you want us to go? When do you want us to go? And I don't have a date. I just know sooner is not what God's calling us to. It's not the soonest that we can get in there. It's definitely not last either. But to think we're going to come together and it'd be exactly the same, guys, that's just not how it's going to work. It doesn't look like that. So we will come back as soon as we can in a way that helps us see everyone everywhere following Jesus. That's our goal. We want to come together when we are at the point where we can actually continue to fulfill that vision, that mission statement that we have, that vision statement. I want to make sure that we're doing it right and we're doing it well. But we may have to come back together in stages. So for some, you want to stay home. Totally fine. Please understand, if you stay home, there's no judgment. This has never happened. I was never trained for this in school. How do you pastor through a pandemic? That's not one of the classes that you get in your master's program for becoming a pastor. They don't ever bring it up. So be home. It's totally fine. There's no judgment that for some, and some of you need to be home. Totally fine. And we will continue to strive to make sure that our online presence continues to excel, and we want to even improve it even beyond as excellent as it already is for the resources that we have. And so there'll be those who want to stay home, and we're all going to stay home for a little while. Then maybe we break into these things called home churches. And I've been pushing these, but what if they're just home gatherings or watch parties? I mean, on Facebook, you can do a watch party. And so what if a few families get together and meet in homes, and as a community, you watch the worship gathering together on the screen. And then when you're taking communion, you can take it in a small group, which sounds a lot like the book of Acts. What if we can do that? And what if home churches begin to grow even more? And then also from there, so home, and then these gatherings, these small little gatherings of people together. And then we come together for what? We come together all to be together when the time is right, when God makes it really clear, this is the time to come back together. But until then, friends, we're still going to be the church. We're still going to be the church. We're still going to be making impacts in our neighborhoods and with our family and with our friends and sharing the gospel. And we're going to be praying together. And I want to encourage you, keep doing that. Tune into the prayer time, the Bible studies, but then message people and call people and video chat with them and join a home church and get plugged in as we're meeting virtually. Guys, God is still doing great things. So what do we do in the meantime of these stages? We looked at it at Sunday's message. We looked at it as we looked in Isaiah 43, 14, and 15, and then we kind of jumped around with this one word, the word wait. This word wait. When I can wait on God, it's then that I know and I trust that God is good and he's great, and I do actually trust him with everything. But we as a culture, we don't like the word wait. How do I know? Everything is quick. Netflix, instant. It used to be where you had to wait, like you had to wait for the show the next week or record it on this big old VCR tape. All the older people, you're like, oh, I remember that. That's how you record it. But now it's all instant. You have the whole season, you have the whole series at your fingertips. Everything's instant. And here God's like, I've never stopped wanting you to wait. And so maybe through this whole thing, one of the things that all of us need to learn is to wait on the Lord, which means I trust that you're great and you're good and you'll fulfill, and there's blessing that comes from it. Look at this, Lamentations 3:24. This is where I'm going to land the plane. 3:24 to 26 in Lamentations. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, because the Lord is my portion, or my inheritance, he's my allotment, therefore I will hope in him. The word hope there, it's also translated to wait expectantly or to wait eagerly. Wait and hope, they're interchangeable in that word, along with when you see the words wait here. So let me read it again. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope or wait expectantly or wait eagerly in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. We need to keep in mind that Lamentations is written by Jeremiah, who's lamenting because Israel is in a very hard time. And here comes Lamentations right kind of in the middle-ish of the book going, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait, or I will hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him. It's almost like there's this exhale and there's this slow inhale and then slow exhale. It's like he's taking in this breath. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. Friends, let's use this time to wait for the Lord. I promise you, he is going to make it so clear to what we're supposed to do. But until that happens, we're going to be faithful to what it is that he's called us, the church, not the building, not the place, not the worship gathering, as the church, the gathering of people brought together to fulfill a purpose. We as the church will continue to be faithful to see that we're disciples, we're growing as disciples, and we as disciples are making disciples who make disciples. Guys, that's what we're about. That's what we're supposed to be about. So again, I can't wait to see you all in the same room. It's almost like it's waiting for Christmas as a kid, yet not knowing when Christmas Day is actually coming. But until then, we're going to keep doing this. Why? Because the church for the last 2,000 years has always been flexible with whatever's going on. And it's flexible. It just kind of forms to what's happening and continues holding to truth, showing grace and love, moving toward the mission that Jesus has called every follower of Jesus since he instituted the church to go make disciples, to baptize them, and to teach them to obey. We will continue to do that exact same thing even now as we wait on the Lord. And I promise, as we wait on him, we are going to see great things happen. He gives us the promise. The Lord is good to those who wait for him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. Guys, thanks for watching this. Thanks for taking the time to watch this. I miss you. I miss seeing all of you. I know we're going to get to see each other one day again. It's not going to be years. I don't believe that. But I have no clue when. But I know it's coming, and I cannot wait for that day. Until then, as I always tell you, I tell you again, love you guys more than you will ever know.